everybody. Good day. Welcome to Digging into the Future. My name is Véronique Swinkels and I'm together here with
Marie-Hélène Caillol. Hello, everyone.
So I'm really excited to discuss with you GEAB number 156 with a really interesting title, Global Europe Anticipation Bulletin, Global Britain, the Game Changer. So that's really interesting. So we talked a lot about Europe and we always focus on Europe, but now it's Global Britain. So this is a really interesting anticipation. You see there's a game changer. So I think there's a lot to say and it needs quite some explanation. But before we go really into the GEAB itself, I'd like to ask you a short question on the method of political anticipation. So what I understand is that the GEAB always works on the basis of a hypothesis. And that's really the basis of the articles that are written. And a lot of other future studies, they work in a sense with scenarios and scenario planning. So can you explain where the difference is and also why you choose to work with a hypothesis?
Well, it's a very strong characteristic of political anticipation. Anticipation in general is that contrary to most future studies, what we call in French prospective, which work indeed based on scenarios and which is more proactive with regards to the future. What we do is that we try to see in fact how decision makers will act due to constraints which are so constraining that in fact there are events in the future which are more likely than others. And that's what is interesting from our point of view in terms of strategy also. We call ourselves political anticipation. We anticipate in order to act, but the main focus is on anticipating, in fact. The Global Europe Anticipation Bulletin, by the way, is about anticipation, not political anticipation. We leave the political part to our readers and we just fuel their information with a very systemic way of seeing how things evolve and what are the likely changes ahead, which they need to take into consideration. So we are really focused in trying to identify upcoming change that once we've spotted them, and that's where our hypothesis is at some point based on our information system, we spot a possible change, which is our hypothesis, which we test. And once we think it's worth presenting it, we present it. And with a very, very strong argumentation, which is present based. So that's why one hypothesis, highly tested, different scenarios relating to to act to the decision made. Wow. Very different ways of addressing, very complementary, I think.
Yeah. Very interesting, and I think one of the key elements in the GEAB and in all the writings and hypotheses are the sources. You look for a lot of, once the hypothesis is there, once you have started your reasoning and your building blocks of evidence for the hypothesis, then it's really well researched and a lot of sources are put into place. And I advise everybody to have a good look at the sources of the GEAB, because also this time there are some really interesting sources that have been found that normal readers wouldn't even have access or knowledge of the sources that you found. So that's very, very interesting and very well researched this time again. I found this GEAB very interesting, a lot of different elements and aspects. So let's just dive into it. And my first question would be the way you describe the future of Great Britain. You actually connect the future of Great Britain very much to the future of the Commonwealth and how, in a way, the British will deal in the coming years with an aging queen and the whole royalty that really connects to the Commonwealth, and also with China's increasing influence on a lot of Commonwealth countries through their famous Belt and Road initiatives. So what do you see happening there?
Well, what we see, first of all, we come back on the past, because it's not the first time that we see this coming, the fact that England is going to reposition itself on its Commonwealth, its former empire. So what we see coming is a UK which is succeeding after having in 2016 through the referendum initiated its leave from the EU, is very, very free now, very agile, very fast player, signing deals, bilateral and multilateral deals with everyone on earth, including with EU countries, including with the US, and of course including with Commonwealth countries, which therefore results in a rejuvenation of this Commonwealth, which was, even though it was very strong, very present, it was sleepy. And now it's being revived, but based on very different principles and based on an anticipation. We see two anticipations from the British that we think have been at play since the early 2010, 2010, which is first, our queen is going to die, and therefore our queen, who has been in power so long, has become the absolute symbol of the unity of the Commonwealth, of the symbol of the Commonwealth. So once she disappears, will her heirs be able to represent that as strongly? So we are going to have a crisis on the front of our Commonwealth. And second, of course, in 2010, they were beginning to see China nibbling their empire more and more, treading on their steps, and therefore these two elements probably triggered contribute to the fact that they started heading towards this Brexit, which now makes them very, very, very fast and position them. That's what we write in the introduction, and it's unique. We think that the UK is now at the center of a geopolitical configuration, a complex geopolitical configuration made of its partnership, it's belonging to the European continent, of course, that remains, to a very strong transatlantic relation with a partnership with the US, which is being reactivated also under with the Biden and Johnson, and the reactivation of the Commonwealth. So if you combine these three positioning, UK is in a very, very strong geopolitical position.
Yeah, because when I was reading the analysis, it really struck me in a way that where in one way Brexit was positioned as something that the common people wanted, their own identity. But if you read it now, it's a very it's a master plan almost made by the elites to sort of have a relaunch UK 2.0 for the next century. So I really thought that I felt there's sort of a master plan behind it that I hadn't seen before.
Well, I mean, we in the GEAB we often refer to the fact that nothing happens by chance, and especially not this kind of shock, especially knowing that, and we highlight the dates. In 2010, you have Cameron who comes to power as prime minister, and he leaves in 2016. And during 6 years, it's all about, are we going to do a referendum or not, or no. And 2010 is the year when they are beginning to question, to see China emerge, to see. So of course, and even if everything, the British people, they are so stupid. Nobody campaigned in the UK against Brexit. Nobody. This was a fact. So of course it happened. Oops.
Yeah, and where do you actually where does it leave Europe? Because I see some tension between Europe as the continent and the EU as the entity of cooperation, the Eurozone. So I found this very fascinating source that you presented from, I think it was from Wikipedia, about the connection between various European multilateral agreements and organizations. And in a way, you see there that Euro and the EU, they're just only parts of a fabric of a much larger ecosystem that is really strong in integrating different forms of cooperation, I guess.
Yes, the UK, by leaving the EU, has already contributed to modify the EU very much, to question. I mean, we have to remember that something that everybody seems to forget, that in 2016, the EU was in a dramatic crisis. it was completely paralyzed. There were crises falling over its head all the time, the financial crisis, the migrant crisis, the Ukrainian crisis, blah, etc. And it was like, it seemed incapable of doing anything. And since this big shock has been sent by the UK, things are beginning to happen again. But more needs to happen. The EU there are elements in the EU which are very now future-oriented, very sustainable, etc. But there remains some aspects of it which need the method, for instance, of decision-making remains completely outdated and far too slow. And we think that the UK is going to play a role, and the deal that they've signed recently with the non-EU European countries, which are Liechtenstein, Norway, and Iceland, are very, very emblematic of the fact that the UK is contributing, and we have to see it positively. If in the EU it can be taken positively.
If you look at the whole list of EU trade agreements, of UK trade agreements, I want to say that there is a whole list. They're working overtime to get all these deals signed up and working together. So
now they can't sign deals with EU countries. So what we say is that maybe they'll find ways, because what they sign is anything, so trade deals, I think they won't be able to sign trade deals with Denmark or the Netherlands or Bulgaria. I don't think they will be able to do that, but they can contour, they can sign deals on certain aspects, security,
research,
exactly, and somehow reconnect to the whole continent little by little, starting with non-Euro EU countries. So that we think that we could be the next step, is that we are going to see sort of rapprochement happening between non-Euro EU countries and Britain. So little by little, and it has to be seen somehow positively. That's what we think, but voila. But we need to be clever.
I'm sure you will be on top of it. I really appreciate this article. And then the second article was also fascinating on demographics, the mother of all change, where you actually describe the reasons and the shocks that have been taking place when the population in 1960 only 3 billion, and in 2020 8 billion people. So this growth is one aspect that is very, very in the center of everything that's happening at the moment, but also the increase of population that is participating in the consumerist economics, as you mentioned it. So how will this develop? I was intrigued by the three scenarios. You talked here about three possible demographic developments.
It's not scenarios. It's ways to react to the fact that demography is growing, and that therefore, as demography grows, the socio-economic models must change to deal with these masses that change dimension regularly. So it increases, and then you reach to a limit of the system, of what the system can handle, and you have a crisis. You need to change the system, and that's what we are currently doing now. We have to move to new types of energy, to new types of mobility, to new types of consumption, to new types of growth, non-material growth-based economy. That's what we say. So we are changing that. But the thing is that once you are in a new paradigm, everything seems to work again. And what we say is that there is a tendency today among all of us to say we need to stabilize this population. And it's very human to think we can't go on like that all the time, to rise, and in 30 years, maybe hopefully we are going to be successful in shifting paradigm, but in 30 years, we might reach, these 10 billion people, therefore, or 12 maybe, if it has gone very well. We don't know. Of course, here it's not anticipation, it's just projections. And then again, we will have to change paradigm, and that's where you see these what we call the future lunatics, like these people who want to colonize Mars, etc. And I mean, this is getting a bit crazy, but it is in fact taking into account the fact that indeed, if we go on rising and we have successfully changed model, but won't be successful in this next model to contribute, deep down to stabilizing the populations, we will run into another such crisis 30 years later. And do we want that? And here what we highlight also is that, of course, there is the three scenarios that you call the trends in how you react to this problematic of population growth. So one, it's the natural reaction. So at some point you're too many, and so you begin to have wars, pandemics, things that kill people, and so you have a reduction of the population. Then you have indeed what, for instance, the Chinese have been up to, or the planning familial, the idea of stabilizing populations, but de facto it is very authoritative. If you control birth, you control life, you control a lot. So it is very incompatible with our model and values of liberalism, etc. So what remains in terms of our Western value acceptable system is a system which is indeed take everything, make it possible for more and more people to live on Earth, and therefore accept the fact that population will grow again, and therefore we put in the future when and what kind of crisis are we going to have in 30 years.
And if you read it well, the third option of this techno-economic vision reads a little bit of a new packaged capitalism, where in terms of digital and green are the new buzzwords to contain life on Earth and keep on growing. So the whole growth scenario is very much at the center.
And the thing is that if you are indeed in the solution that goes for let's accept growth population, you need, and they already see it. They are already anticipating the fact that tech is endless. There will need to be more, and therefore you need to finance this today. And that's and today we have a system where the money is gathered more and more in the hands of very few people who are building this future for us. So but that's a very scary also. So all scenarios are scary. In fact, all scenarios are scary, but they need to be taken into account in order to maybe contribute.
Find ways
which are least the most acceptable ways.
So there's a very good article I would recommend people to read about Spain and how Spain has written a program 2050. And that's really, on one hand, I know that when we first talked about this program that they were writing, that it was interesting to see that there is a country actually making a future statements and looking into the future. But once it was there was some disappointment about the quality, and there might still be a national dialogue.
The lack of imagination, I would say, the lack of systemic, broad and dynamic vision. It's not a dynamic vision. It's really projecting a future based on what are the problems today, and with no purpose. What Spain in Europe and in the world do we want? Knowing that we understand the world is going to be faced. So that's where we think that it's very promising. They are very ambitious with their 2050 date. That's a rather long-term horizon. So, and we find that, of course, it's a very technocratic work. We think it's interesting in its concept. It's interesting to have brought up this idea of projecting in the future. What is interesting also, we notice at the end, is that they are going to submit these proposals. They have 200 proposals for the future of Spain by 2050. These proposals are going to be submitted to public debate, etc. So it is fueling a debate, but it is fueling a very low-profile debate on the future. So it's a low.
So would it be something for the GEAB at one point to take a country, to do anticipation, just not on the EU but on individual countries? So to add to this initiative that was started in Spain and see what sort of insights.
The thing, Véronique, is that we know why it's so low profile. It's been done in combination with the EU prospectivists and Spanish ones, and of course it's very difficult today to be a good pupil in Europe and to project an ambitious global vision. So, you know, global Spain and being a good European Spain are two incompatible things, and that's why they couldn't do better than that. And at the same time, what our article is very much about questioning how long will the EU kill ambition, vision, global awareness among its
yeah, because that's what I felt when I was reading it. So where does that there is sort of a dilemma that is taking shape.
Because what we see also as a very, very crucial issue is that the more these feelings of, you know, we are a great country, we have a history, we are connected to the world, but we can't say it. This fuels somehow extreme right movements deep down, and if it's not, and in fact, what the EU should be doing is to coordinate, you know, healthy, I would say, global visions of each country. Rather than hush them down, usher them down, you know, and take the risk of seeing them explode under very negative forms later.
Yeah, because what you described, the rise of certain movements and political parties with political signatures, is also for everybody who wants to be really on top of this. Is to read the political scene 2021, 2025 that is in the GEAB as well this month, where you sort of describe everything that's happening in terms of elections and who's expected to become in power. So this fuels very much the imagination of how Europe could look like, how the world could look like in a couple of years, with a real, I think it's a new form of leadership that is coming. Could be positive, could be negative, but there's something changing. And then the final article is on what the effects are of the US stimulus on India, on emerging countries. Just to wrap up this very nice conversation, is there anything that you want to tell? What is the main thing that you see happening there? I saw this was quite a warning to emerging economies not to become too dependent on these foreign investments in order to be able to develop further.
Oh yes, it's been on our minds for a while, the fact that all this money of the US stimuli, and not just the US, by the way, but it's the West, which is printing money all over the place. The Canadians, the Japanese also, I think, are printing a lot of money, and so it's somehow it's bringing back this global, you know, money, these dollars that had gone a lot towards the emerging economies, which were the places where the growth points were, and now they're bringing back the money to them on a Keynesian principle to restart, rebuild infrastructures, draw activity, regain growth points, etc. And then we think, what's going to be left? You know, if all foreign direct investments are redirected towards the US, etc. What's going to happen to this emerging and developing world? And in fact, interestingly, what we think is that it's going to be dangerous also for the West.
Yeah.
The West, because lots of there's going to be lots of defaults and bankruptcies resulting from this big change in direction. There was this direction which was quite clear, and all of a sudden, boom, the money has to go the other way around. And if you have big collapses, economic collapses on the side of the emerging world, it's not going to be painless for our economy.
In terms of,
in fact, in the end. So that's why, and that's a very, very strong notion, thing that we see today, is that the US is trapped. In fact, it's completely trapped. Whatever it does, it backlashes.
Well, we will see after the summer, what will happen? Normally the GEAB will in July and August. There will not be an issue related to actual developments in the world, but you always have a different way of making the GEAB, so we have something to offer to our readers. Can you tell something about what the July and August issue will look like?
Yes, so we are going to have one special edition which will be thematic in July on family, reproduction and sex in the future.
Okay, wow.
And so voilà, it's a special edition. And the August edition will be, as usual, a compilation, but in fact it will be also the first such publication about a very strong structuring trend that is transversal to all our analysis, and this time we are going to dig into multipolarization of the world, which of course our readers know very well that it's all over our transversal to all our anticipations. So we want to decipher it a little, to review the evolution of this trend along the years, those 15 years during which we've been following the crisis, not following, anticipating. We don't follow, we are ahead. So multipolarization of the world will be the topic of, but it will be mostly consist of a selection of excerpts reorganized into a nice little publication.
Okay, interesting. So that will be the summer issues. But for now, I would say read the present GEAB, the June GEAB. Of course, we have the investment trends and recommendations. If you want to know a little bit about the crypto war you're describing, values associated with sports, it's all there. And I really hope you enjoyed this issue. I think it's very interesting. I read it with a lot of pleasure. Thank you. Big compliment to the team.
Yeah,
and,
thank you for that. Did you just one thing very important that you mentioned? Of course, the paper on the emerging economies. It was written by an Indian member of our team, which gives a certain an interesting. It's an Indian perspective on this problem, which makes it very relevant.
Okay, very interesting.
But thank you for thanking them. We will forward your thanks to them. And you say that you had pleasure reading them. We had pleasure writing it. I think it was a very enjoyable issue.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.